Welcome to the Diversity Scholarship Foundation's Profiles in the Law. I'm your host, Jesse Reyes, a justice on the Illinois Appellate Court, but president of the Diversity Scholarship Foundation. And as I mentioned before, this is a series of conversations that we are having with prominent members of the legal profession. And it's our great pleasure and honor today to have Weeya Young, who is the current president of the Black Women Lawyers Association. And before we get to the association and so on and so forth, I just want to welcome Ms. Young. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Justice Reyes.
I understand that you're not a native of Chicago, so give us a little background about yourself so our viewers could get to know you a little bit better.
Absolutely. As Justice Reyes said, I'm Weeya Young. My name is a little unique, especially the middle name. I'm a proud child of immigrant parents, specifically from West Africa, Monrovia, Liberia. I'm not from Chicago. I'm a Chicago transplant. So I spent most of my life in Florida, went to law school in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, Capital University Law School, went to a Chicago Cubs game and fell in love with Chicago and decided, you know what? While it would have been great to take a job with the Ohio Supreme Court Office of Disciplinary Counsel, I just had a really great opportunity here in Chicago with the Institute of Real Estate Management, followed by the National Association of Realtors. Based on my background with ethics and real estate, it was just a perfect fit. So now here I am.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
So you traveled from Florida to Ohio to Chicago.
Yes.
Did you grow up in Florida?
I did. I spent most of my life in Florida. It was a great time. Went to the University of Central Florida. And for me, you know, being a child of immigrant parents and being the first generation lawyer in my family, I just fell in love with the law, with things that I saw in my upbringing, being in college, joining the Toastmaster Association in Orlando, and I saw other attorneys that had a voice for other people, and I thought, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to stand for. So for me, law school, even though I worked a little bit after college, was the natural trajectory. So applying across the United States, getting to school in Ohio, and then making my way to Chicago just seemed fitting.
Well, we're all the better for having you here.
Thank you.
So, first generation, I'm sure it wasn't easy getting to be where you're at today. Could you share a little bit about what that was like for you?
Right. You know, so as I keep saying, I'm a proud child of immigrant parents. My parents immigrated to the United States over 30 years ago. Took forever for them to get citizenship. I was born here in the United States along with my siblings, but it was such a long road. And I saw how hard they struggled to make sure that we had every opportunity available to us. That gave me the opportunity and my siblings an opportunity to explore to see what we like, right? From dancing, from my tap ballet years to debate, right? To Future Business Leaders of America, to eventually finding the law and finding my footing. So that was not an easy journey. I would also say to you, the younger generation out there, it's also not an easy journey to be in school. Believe it or not, we recognize that, right? We've been there before. But lean on your support system. Recognize that you are just as smart, you're just as brilliant as anybody else in the room, and you just have a different ways of approaching things. And that's how I approached my law school career. For me, I may not necessarily have the best grades, but I leaned on my skill set, public speaking, and argument, debate. So moot court and mock trial were a natural thing for me. I advanced to through the Midwest SPALSA. I was best oralist in the Midwest, leaning on those skill set, but recognizing that I also could benefit from honing my legal research skills. So I leaned on others that were stronger in those categories, recognizing that it was a give and take between us, and I can help them in other aspects, and they could help me so I could advance my career and advance in the community. So all that to say, regardless of where you start, is not indicative of where you'll finish, and I'm a proud example of that.
Well, that's very good advice. And as you mentioned, it does go fast, though. The years of education goes pretty fast.
Right.
And then also to your point about developing the basic skills, you know, writing, speaking in public, and being analytical in terms of problems. Those are traits that even if you decide not to practice law when you go to law school afterwards, and there are many people that have degrees but choose not to be practitioners, those are still skill sets that you can utilize in any area of your life.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
Yeah. So, what for you though? What in particular directed you to the law?
For me, it was just this desire. It was I think it might have been my sophomore, junior year in college at the University of Central Florida. I joined Winter Park Toastmasters, a professional speaking club in Orlando, Florida, and I met attorneys that were really deep in domestic violence. And I thought, wow, I could be a court watcher. I have no idea what that means, but I want to participate. I've always had this desire to contribute to the greater good because of my upbringing. I've seen how hard my parents have worked and struggled to make sure that we had every opportunity available to us. And I've always had that inclination to contribute to the greater good. Give more than you receive. So for me, being a court watcher was a natural thing for me to do. And when I experienced that in a domestic violence court in Orlando, I thought, that's what I want to do with my career. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer, and I want to go to law school, and I want to focus on domestic violence. Fast forward, I worked, got to law school, and then I realized I really have an inkling for professional responsibility and ethics. So my legal career in law school took a pivot to the Ohio Supreme Court Office of Disciplinary Counsel, where I was the law clerk for 12 disciplinary councils, including the state disciplinary council. And I fell in love with that, but something was saying to me, there's something a little bit bigger here that I can explore. And Chicago was just a natural fit. Got to Chicago, and then had the opportunity to work for the National Association of Realtors, the Institute of Real Estate Management, and eventually found my way to the Black Women Lawyers of Greater Chicago.
Oh, nice. So for our viewers, can you explain a little bit what the Office of Disciplinary Commission does?
Yes.
I know it's somewhat similar to what we have here in Illinois as well. So.
Yeah, so the Office of Disciplinary Counsel handles ethics complaints related to our members of the judiciary and members of our legal profession. It's very important that we adhere to rules and regulations. So the Disciplinary Counsel is the body, similar to what we have here in Illinois, which is called the ARDC, is the entity that manages that process, that polices that process. And then I found my way here to Chicago, and it's been a great experience with the National Association of Realtors, a great experience with the Institute of Real Estate Management. But as I said to you, Justice Reyes, I always had that calling to contribute to the greater good.
Right, yes.
I eventually became a Cook County State's Attorney under Kim Fox. I went on to serve under Buildings Code and Violations for the City of Chicago. I then went on to serve, again, pursuing public interest, the greater good, right? For the Assistant Attorney General for the Illinois Attorney General's Office, and then found my way to my current role as Procurement Counsel. So I'm head counsel for the Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services, a $40 billion state agency. So we have 3/4 of the state's budget, and that's something I take very seriously when it comes to healthcare and making sure child support obligations are fulfilled.
And could you explain to our viewers, procurement officer, what does a procurement officer do?
So we handle all of the contracts for major hospitals and major entities across the United States. So when you think of University of Chicago Medicine, when you think of Northwestern or any hospital, it is more than likely, especially for those individuals that need assistance with healthcare, what we call Medicaid. The state of Illinois steps in under the governor's office, and specifically with my entity, the Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services, to contract with those hospitals to make sure that we have services in place, because it's the state's position, and certainly my position, that everybody deserves access to quality healthcare, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
So does your role only pertain to public hospitals or private hospitals as well?
Private as well.
Okay.
Private as well, yes.
All right. And so you mentioned that you worked in the state's attorney's office for a while. So in what area did you work in?
Yeah, so I worked in child support, hence the reason I'm passionate about the Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services. Hanging up my litigation hat, and we'll talk about that when you're in court, right? Hanging up my litigation hat and now fighting for everybody in Illinois to ensure that we have healthcare. But working for the office was great. I handled child support cases. I also handled what we call child protection cases. Department of Children and Family Services cases, and that's to ensure that children are protected, they're not being abused, neglected, And if they are, then the state, specifically Cook County, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, has an obligation to prosecute those cases.
Yeah, so this way our viewers can understand. So you're actually representing the children, right, in the child protection cases.
So I represent the state,
The
but
state,
technically we represent the best interests of the children.
Children,
right?
yes. All right.
Right.
Because I know sometimes some people have a little confusion about that. They think that
Great
you're
point.
On the other side, but you're actually looking out for the welfare of the children.
Exactly. In the best interest of Illinois, which is to protect the children.
Well,
Absolutely.
you definitely have a resume of public service, throughout, and I think that's very significant because we, as lawyers and judges, that's what we are. We are public servants, and you're not only a public servant during the day, but once you clock out, you're still a public servant, and in that capacity, you're the current president of the Black Women Lawyers Association. So could you provide our viewers with a little history of the Black Women's Lawyers Association?
Absolutely. So the Black Women Lawyers Association was incepted in 1987. We're in our 38th year of existence. And the Black Women Lawyers, our focus is on what is important to Black women in the legal field. What are the things that we need to advance from a civil rights perspective? How can we support our law students? How can we administer justice? What does that look like? And then support initiatives that are important to us, recognizing a lot of our commonalities we have in common, right? So for the Black Women Lawyers, I just felt this was a natural inclination for me to join the organization to see how can we further issues that are important to Black women, like civil rights, making sure that we have equal opportunity as it relates to law firm positions in government, just an equal opportunity standing. And then in the interim, while we are progressing as Black women lawyers, how do we support those that are coming behind us? Meaning, how do we have our law students and our younger generation have a seat at the table? Hence the reason BWLA is a proponent of scholarships. Since the inception of BWLA, I think 3 or 4 years after, our scholarship fund board has raised over $1 million to support law students pursuing a legal career, because we recognize that we're here, but eventually you are the next generation, and we want to support that.
So other than, and we throw some very fabulous social events that we all enjoy attending, but you also have what's known as continuing legal education programs as well.
Yes.
And could you kind of elaborate a little bit on, some of those that you touch on that are important for our viewers to know about?
Absolutely. So as Justice Reyes indicated, BWLA, we do host what we consider continuing legal education. And what that is yes, we are lawyers, yes, we are judges, but we still have an obligation to make sure that we are well informed with the times and educate ourselves along the way. So BWLA has taken the position that we will focus on things that are important to our membership. For example, we just completed a continuing legal education program that was focused on how do we see DEI? That's a topic we keep hearing about, diversity, equity, and inclusion. What does that mean in the years to come, right? Another thing we focus on is our ethical responsibility, because that's always at the forefront of the members of our judiciary, like Justice Reyes, and me as a lawyer, to make sure that we are meeting our ethical obligations and we are not overstepping. And then we focus on, by taking a survey, what is it that our members are really interested in? Sometimes it's business law, sometimes it could be commercial. So we target those aspects, but wholeheartedly we focus on ethics as the primary focus, and then what is relevant to the times. Outside of what we consider to be our continuing legal education, BWLA, along with other organizations, have taken the position that we need to be a voice in the community. We need to stand for our community. And how can we collectively as organizations come together to foster programs that are relevant to our membership? So for example, the Hispanic Lawyers Association of Illinois and the Black Women Lawyers Association have partnered, and we will be hosting an event on April 15th at Carnival that is really focused on etiquette. So the reason that is important to our membership is we take into consideration our younger generation, you, that are coming into the profession or maybe even thinking about the law, and you have these great opportunities, but maybe you don't know what the etiquette is. How do I proceed in conversations? Right. How do I sit at the table and what do I do? What is a fork versus a spoon? When do I use a drinking glass versus a water glass? All of those things matter, and I'm happy and thrilled to hear that also matters to the president of HLAI, and I'm very excited about that program. So to answer your question, we focus on things that are important from a CLE perspective, but then we also want to give back to our membership, recognizing that we are the current generation, but they're the next generation, and we want to bring them forward.
Excellent, and I'm looking forward to that event.
Excited.
So for our younger viewers, and you said a word that I know it probably ringed in their ears, scholarships.
Yes.
So if anybody was interested in applying for a scholarship or wanted to know more about a scholarship, could you provide some information for them?
Absolutely. So the Black Women Lawyers, you can go to our website. It's www.bwla.org, and you'll see a plethora of scholarship opportunities. Yes, we are a legal organization, but we provide scholarships for people that are considering pre-law. We provide scholarships for parents, right, that are currently in the legal community. And then we provide what we consider are big scholarships, $15,000, $20,000, scholarships for those that are currently in law. So I don't want you to get the opinion that because you're not in the law yet, that there's not an option for you. We even provide scholarships for LSAT. And the LSAT is what we studied for years ago to get into law school, right? So that scholarship is also available, and I welcome you to check it out.
And I want to thank you at this time because speaking of scholarships, you and BWLA have been big sponsors and supporters of our efforts in the Diversity Scholarship Foundation. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Happy to do so. And that's such a great program, and definitely something that BWLA looks forward to continuing supporting in the future.
Thanks. Now, law students.
Yes.
Does BWLA take on law students?
We do. We take on law students. In fact, I've made it a part of my mission. So my theme for this bar year is bright, bold, and balanced. So what does that mean? When I think bright futures. I think law students. I think you are the next generation. When I think bold, it's bold programming to ensure that we're still relevant in the community. And then balance is how do we juggle this all with everything that we have going on? So one of the positions that I've taken this year as president is to ensure for the first time that BWLA's committee, specifically for our Law Student Outreach Committee, is chaired by law students. We get all of our information from the law students. We support our law students through scholarships, through sponsorships for events, and to ensure that we have a pipeline of attorneys that are coming behind us to eventually lead this organization and prepare them for other organizations. So when it comes to BWLA, there's always a spot for law students. We have over 50 plus that are already in our law student committee, ranging from the University of Chicago to Northwestern to even Southern Illinois University. So we have quite a bit.
Okay, so that would be on your website, that information for the law students?
Absolutely.
And can you provide the link?
Absolutely.
For our viewers?
Yes, so the link to the BWLA website, and you'll see that there's an option for law students. It's a $10 fee. If that's problematic, please let them know that you have an issue with that, and they will send that to me so we can cover it. The email address or the web link is www.bwla.org.
And I know you've already accomplished a lot so far in your term, but what is the future hold?
You know what, I've been asked that a lot. And for me, I feel like there's so much work to do here as it relates to healthcare. And for me, I see myself with the state of Illinois, specifically the Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services, recognizing we're dealing with over $40 billion of contracts in the years to come. I definitely see myself in that role to ensure that Illinoisans have quality health care and have access to health care in this climate.
Yeah, and then unfortunately that also includes mental health.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Mental health is huge. So we do have contracts that actually cover that. Hence the reason I think it's so important especially in this climate.
So, when we're talking about one of your goals is balance, and you're a very active lawyer, very active community leader. You're a mom, a wife. So, how do you do it all? How do you balance it?
Peloton. I am a Peloton queen and meditation queen. And for me, that's how you balance it all. You prioritize and recognize you're not going to always get it right. And you may not be able to fill it in the entire day, but do what you can, but always give yourself grace. That's the recipe.
All right. And what advice would you give to our young viewers that, right now are probably looking and wondering, is the law for me? Is it worth it? What is the ultimate outcome?
I'd say keep going and reach out. Reach out to those that you see or aspire to be and say to them, I'm interested. I don't know where I start, but I'd love to talk with you. And I certainly would be one of those people that be willing to talk to you and then just walk you through it and see if this really is for you. Because sometimes you don't know what you can be until you can actually see it.
And I think that's important because, for example, you're a shining example of someone who was persistent. I mean, you came from Florida, you went to Ohio, you came here, and, as a result of a Cub game, and we'll put that aside for now. But
Thank you.
You decided to stay here in Chicago, but, first generation, and it's difficult, particularly for someone who is first generation, that's not familiar with the terrain, to be able to succeed as you have. So what is your secret?
Being open and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and saying, here I am. This is what I have to offer. This is how I can help. But in turn, I need you to help me. And that's why I think it's so important to be open, reach out to people, even if you're a transplant like I was years ago. Also, BWLA is a local organization, but you're also associated and work very closely with a national organization as well, right? Could you share that with our viewers? Yeah, so we work with a lot of national organizations from the National Bar Association. We also have members that are part of the National Conference of Bar Presidents. I'm actually a diversity scholar of that program. So we work with a lot of national organizations. Even some of our scholarships are open nationally, as you'll see with our spring scholarship. Based on our gala that we're having on April 5th, 2025, that's actually open nationwide.
And where is that going to be held?
That is going to be at the Epiphany Center here in Chicago on April 5th, 2025, where we will provide scholarships. We're reviewing applications as we speak to those deserving law students that deserve a chance and need funding to ensure that their legal education is intact.
And when would the deadline be? When does someone need to?
It actually passed, but don't fret because, there's going to be a new bar year and there's going to be new scholarships. So just keep going.
And all they have to do is just mention they know you, right?
Right. So I know Weeya Young, President Weeya Young.
When someone joins a BWA, they not only have the opportunity of having connections and networks locally, but nationally as well, right?
That is correct. It is not uncommon, especially when you look at our founders who are all across the United States at this juncture, and our past presidents who are all across the United States. For example, Chastity Burns, who is Dick Durbin's Deputy General Counsel, who's out in D.C. We have people out in California, Boston area. We connect you to where you want to be. So while Chicago is based, if you want to explore outward, that's an option too. You just have to reach out. You have to be open, right? We keep talking about that, about being open and letting us know what it is that you want to do so that we can support you in your journey.
And that includes anything in any area of the law.
That's correct. That's correct.
Which I think is important for people to realize because everybody tends to think that we're all trial lawyers, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Not the case. I put up the trial hat, but.
Yeah. Well, I have to say this has been a pleasure having you on the program, and continued success to you and BWLA.
Thank you.
And it's been a pleasure being with you this afternoon. Again, I am Jesse Reyes, your host, president of the Diversity Scholarship Foundation, and also justice on the Illinois Appellate Court, First District. And this was Profiles in the Law, and we look forward to having further conversations with prominent members in the legal profession on later dates.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone.